Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're looking at D-Shift, still one of the top meta decks. You can't really go wrong with a decent D-Shift deck. And a lot of D-Shift these days is running the Commence Experiment along with the Consecration for the extra 3 draw, plus the fact that this is actually a spell that summons an Earth Sigil. Works quite nicely, along with a couple of Golem Assaults, which works to bust out the aggro decks as much as you can, while also being able to put a lot of bodies on board for when you are ready to play D-Shift. We're running a single Giant Chimera because it works as a great finisher. We're running triple Chimera because that's just an amazing card in general, and most decks do run it. I am running 2 Merlins, but some people have been dropping Merlin for other cards. Just seems to be based on preference. And of course, one of the biggest cards of the deck, Magic Owl. Quite overpowered when it comes to boosting up cards. It does exceptionally well for that. Everything else is pretty stock standard D-Shift. You know, all your draws, all your summon bodies, returns, and just pure clear value. So we'll get right into some games. So first up is a Rune matchup. Of course, Rune on Rune comes down a lot to who goes first. Coming first is pretty major. Obviously, if this is Earth Rune that I'm versing, then there's a very different structure to how you play the game. Especially as D-Shift. You do still want to be boosting, but you will focus on removing some stuff from the board a little more than just, you know, focusing on that draw power. So we got a pretty average hand. The Chimera D-Shift's good, Conjure Golem's alright, and Kaleidoscope Glow is actually reasonable. Drawing that Giant Chimera though, pretty much perfect. Also, depending on your matchup, you're not always going to have to worry about D-Shift necessarily. You do want to try and get it out by turn 7 at the latest, especially in a mirror match. Of course, a couple damage. Since I don't have anything else to play, playing that in that way was fine. Just boosting things as much as I can. Our hand has actually become really good. Of course, they do play some pretty pain in the ass cards. I mean, getting good draws, it's quite important. And then a Wind Blast. But we do get our own draw power, which is awesome. The only pain in the ass part is that we may go into overdraw just purely based on having too many cards in the next few turns, especially with Fates being able to be played soon. The unfortunate part though is I probably can't get D-Shift down quite early enough, which puts me in a really difficult spot against my opponent, but Owl makes up for that a little bit.
You're done for.
Double boost and allows me to play the Fates hand if I so desire. But we'll hold on to that and just wait and see what our next draw is. Playing a 0 Fate is usually good in your following turn compared to your current turn. So, turn 7. We'll play our Fate, we'll get a couple draws. I'm not too worried about burning cards at this point. But we're definitely not playing D-Shift turn 7, which is unfortunate. But getting everything else as pumped up as I can is very important here. So we've got plenty of 0 drops, we've got our Dimensional Shift down to 5, and we have plenty of clear power. Unfortunately, our opponent does have their own D-Shift. Luckily, they didn't have anything to go with it, which is good. And they can't really take advantage of this at all. So our next turn can pretty much guarantee us game. Unfortunately, I do make a slight mistake though, which is quite unfortunate.
No.
So we've got the D-Shift, we've got the Chimeras. I should have really just played 2 Chimera and then play Giant in the following turn off the Dimensional Shift, instead of just going for a triple Chimera. Not that it makes a huge difference because we're pretty much set up into the next turn anyway, and the opponent proceeds, but it would have been guaranteed lethal if I had it went that way. And next up, Blood. One of the harder matchups when you're playing D-Shift. probably actually the worst matchup against D-Shift. You don't want to come up against Blood as much as possible, and with Aggro Blood being so popular, it mainly seems to be to counter D-Shift in particular. So D-Shift and Aggro Blood, probably tier 1, mainly because D-Shift kills every single control and most mid-range decks, and then Blood pretty much just destroys D-Shift. So the popularity of D-Shift leads to Blood being quite good. But Blood holds its own against most decks anyway, so it's not too surprising that it is topping. Magic Missile, great counter. Of course, you know, we're gonna win most games, in most cases. But against Blood, you've really got to focus on just hitting the opponent as much as you can. Getting them down, making sure their board is completely empty. Not taking too much damage. And for that, we've actually got a really solid hand. We've got the return, so we're not too worried about most things. We've got the Conjure Golem, so we can set up a ward if we need it. Magic Missile there, pretty much ideal. We're only going to be taking a couple of damage each turn, while we pump up these Chimeras and draw into whatever else we can.
Shed tears of joy, I've arrived.
Not so lucky though, Vate. A little bit of pain. And we are going to take a little bit more damage.
Hearken to the word.
Sometimes you got to take risks, and these are the sort of matchups where it's going to be really difficult. Coming up against Blood, like I said, worst matchup you could probably have. So the main idea is going to be just survive and kill off as much as you can, which is why I use a Chimera here and not anywhere else. And make sure to limit the damage I can take as much as I can. And we're actually looking at probably a turn 7 D-Shift, which is optimal.
Unbelievable.
Witness the power.
And the one advantage I've got is that Blood does run out of steam quite quickly. So once we clear turn 6 here, as long as we can get rid of this board, we're pretty set. And that Magic Owl is absolutely perfect. And combos nicely with everything else. It sets up a body, which means next turn whatever they play we can pretty much trade into. As long as they don't have some crazy combo, we're actually going to be okay. By crazy combo I basically mean 3 Razor Claws. Or double Razory into anything with 1 damage like Ambling Wraith would have been a problem. And outside of that we can actually set up for game. Quite easily.
Here comes some real magic. This ends here.
I mean, we've got 12 damage there. No real issue to go for lethal.
I seem to have lost.
And our final matchup is another rune match.
I guess you're looking for a fight. Let's see you in action.
So we get an okay hand. I do drop the Consecration, mainly because I'm looking for something that I can spell boost, otherwise Commence Experiment isn't going to get decent value. Although it may have been worth actually just keeping that. But coming up against another D-Shift deck and playing off the second, I really wanted to try and get something that I could boost. Plus, I've got ample chances to draw into other cards at this point. Both with Glow and with Magic Missile being pretty good. And of course, double Fates actually works out really well. We're going to be able to boost those quite effectively, and then you drop them to just draw off as much as we can. Consecration? Consecration, that's what I just call it. Anyway, pain in the ass. We don't really get much else. I return my Earth Essence only to be able to play it again because I don't have any other cards to play. Merlin in this kind of matchup isn't necessary. I find Merlin's good in either a Dragon or Haven matchup where trading and getting value is quite good. But for the most part, you can nearly do without the Merlins, like I said earlier. Meaning you can pretty much cut the only legendary in this entire deck. probably aim for something more spell based, maybe 1-drop spells or something. But I do find Merlin's good if you do get into a longer game and you're bricking hard, which can be a problem with D-Shift if you're not careful. So I do decide to use 1 Fates here, just because I want to get something. And luckily we draw into probably the best draw. Unfortunately though, burning that card. Should have thought about that right before I played it, honestly. But we've got plenty now. After next turn we should have a playable D-Shift, meaning turn 7. And Chimera and stuff should hopefully be low enough that with a boost we'll be right. Of course, if I got my own owl, that would be good, but unfortunately we're going to burn whatever's next. It's a real problem with this deck, I find. If you do get into overdraw, you can so easily just keep burning cards repeatedly. There we go, owl, perfect. Being able to drop D-Shift even further and also put Chimeras into playable range.
It won't be long now.
All at the same time, just throwing out a body. And of course, another Magic Owl for them, just because we know they returned it, so it's likely they're going to play it. As long as they don't D-Shift here, I've got a good chance at actually winning this, which was the main aim of what I was trying to do. Of course, Fiery Embrace, very common. Now it's just a matter of knowing what to do. Wind Blast drops everything by 1, which is really effective. And being able to play Chimera for 0.
This ends here.
Luckily with double D-Shift, I'm actually in a pretty good spot. I mean, that Insight was perfect. I can drop the 2 cards I need to drop down enough for a value of 1, while at the same time being able to just play another D-Shift, drop the extra Chimera, along with the Merlin, gives me 14 damage. It wouldn't quite have been enough, but the extra turn would have gave me whatever I needed. And as always, if you enjoyed this deck, you will find a link in the description below for the deck list. This deck's great fun, I enjoy playing it. It is very orientated on making sure you do things in the right order, especially when it comes to Fate's Hand and Consecration, so you're not burning too many cards. Burning 1 here and there, usually okay, especially if you've got Giant Chimera and your D-Shifts and stuff already in your hand, so you're not worried about burning those. So if you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you next time. See ya.